What's up, guys? Welcome to A Reseller's Life. My name is Chris. Today I have a super awesome episode. I have the family flips with us, Joe and Jessica. They are full-time resellers. They're a family of 5, and they've accomplished something that I feel is very unique, which is they have a full-time nanny. So I do get a bunch of requests like, how do you do this and run a family? So I'm going to go over my process for my 5-step process for reselling with these guys together as an interview. And then we can go over how they plan their day and their best practices and their goals together. And this should be really fun. Joe and Jessica, how's it going? Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Hey, everybody.
She's the funny one, so I'll let her go first.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm the funnier one. And self-proclaimed, actually. I think some people would probably differ. But we're the family flips. We've been married for like 4-ish years now.
4 years, September. Yeah, 4 years. We don't even know. We argue most of the time playfully. Like, we don't even remember which day we got married on.
It was the 12th.
Yeah. So we're just, that tells you a lot about, just our relationship, our marriage. We're not real particular about things. We're very minimalist and don't really make big deals about things that, our culture would really tell us to make big deals about. So.
Yeah. Well, we've been reselling for, he was reselling when I met him.
Yeah.
And I kind of joined in, and together we used our strengths and kind of grew the business. And we have 3 beautiful children, and we homeschool, and
7, 3, and 1. I can say 3 now. Lucy, she was, her birthday was last week. So 7, 3, and 1.
And it's an awesome life.
And, we're the family flips because we do this as a family. Like, we homeschool our kids. So, like, we really use reselling as the vehicle really to allow us to live the lifestyle that we want to live with producing a family first environment. A lot of people, work is important. Work is awesome. Careers, it's, we're passionate about that. But a lot of times the family is sacrificed at the cost of the pursuit of a career. And sometimes people say, well, you can either pursue your career or you can pursue your family. Well, because we want both, we've chosen reselling as a way that we can pursue a career-minded thing as a couple, but we can also do it with our family. And this allows us the unique opportunity to do both.
That's awesome. And you guys have something that's really cool in a sense that you have help. So there's a lot of people who are trying to do this maybe as a side or part-time hustle, but you guys have a worker, a virtual assistant, and a nanny, and I definitely want to touch base there. But the first step that we always start with is determining a goal, and you guys have a $3,000 a week goal. And if you don't mind sharing, like, what is that number based on? How did you come up with that amount of money?
Yeah, it's just really, our goal, which we're moving into this goal. We've been building this goal higher and higher as far as the amount of items that we want listed each week. Our current goal that we are working towards is 300 items per week. The items that we sell, the categories that we sell, we aim for a profit of at least $10 per item. So it's probably about $13.50 right now. But also we sell in a category that gives us a very high sell-through rate. So we're able to really, with that goal, that will bring us the $3,000 a week net that we are looking for.
This is awesome. So when you say relatively fast sell-through rate, is that like within a month, within 2 months? What do you think?
Yeah, for our main categories like cell phones, it's probably about 120% sell-through rate. So usually about every 3 weeks, we can turn inventory over. I've got a lot of buyers that as soon as I list a particular phone, it's sold within an hour or 2. Whereas there are some models, depending on the condition, that it may take a little bit longer to sell, but there's some models that sell very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. Whereas like digital cameras, it's a category that we've recently, over the last 4 months, we've grown into. It has about an 80% sell-through rate. And then with a lot of the liquidated goods that we sell, it's got about a 50% sell-through rate. So about every 2 months, we're flipping that inventory over.
This is really important for people who are watching right now. And also, you can subscribe to their channel. It'll be the first link in the description below if you guys want to support them as well. But there are certain items, like let's just use the iPhone as an example. Every single iPhone pretty much has a set price. There's not a lot of variation. You could price it, if you price $10 too high, you'll probably never sell it because there's
No.
just so many of them available. You have to know what you're doing. And also, but if you do price competitively, it should be gone within a week or even a day if it's a popular electronic. So that's awesome. To contrast that, I'm in like a slow burn type of model. I'm okay with it selling within 4 months. But if you're going to do that, I recommend at least a $20 profit per item. If you're going to wait a long time, no one wants to wait a long time to make a small amount of profit. So you got to do it one or the other. So I love this goal. So 300 items a week. And you guys broke it down by activity, which we'll get into in just a moment to explain. So, guys, I always call this the war. The war that we're fighting is 300 items a week, at least $10 profit. They know their numbers; they're at 13, and they're also trying to bump that up to 15. But we all know in reselling, some items may not sell. There's some shrinkage, meaning some stuff will have some issues. There are certain items that require extra work or extra TLC, and those costs add up. So I love the push towards 15, but aiming for 10 net after everything. Um, let's talk about genre. Like, what, if you guys don't mind sharing, categories do you guys sell in?
Yeah, our main categories that we sell in are digital cameras, GPSs, uh, smartphones. We do sell some. Anytime I can get certain flip phones, I'll buy the heck out of them because people still want those. And then the smartphones, and then we also, when we do buy, like, that's our sourcing strategy is to fuel those categories, those real four categories: tablets, smartphones, digital cameras, GPS. Is like, that's what drives our business. But also we purchase liquidated goods like pallets or multiple pallets at a time that will give us the high margins that we can sit on it for 3 or 4 months, because we may make 60 or 70 bucks off that one item, but it's just going to sit there. So it's important for us to have the cash flow now with those high sell through items balanced with the high margin items that we do have when we buy liquidation.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, guys, they have their bread and butter, which is like GPSs, cell phones, cameras, tablets, that kind of stuff. And this is the stuff that pays the bills. And if you're going to deal in auctions or you're going to deal in collectibles with a high margin, those are not like a consistent supply. No one like handles exactly one pallet per week. It doesn't work like that. It's kind of like feast or famine. So I like how you guys have set it up. So that's just extra, that
Yeah.
you're not reliant on that income.
Right.
Cool. So now the second part of this, you don't have to share specifics, but you guys have already lined up a way to get this inventory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this for, I guess, 5 years now, and I've got lots of relationships that I've established that, that you couldn't do otherwise. Like, people ask, like, where do you get your stuff? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you, because if I tell you, then that's going to be a big hindrance to our business. But
Mm-hmm.
I would say work on building relationships with whatever it is. Like, if you want to sell a particular item, just reverse engineer that item, figure out what it is, and then go look for where you can get it, and then try to find the best prices that you can get it at.
Absolutely. This is, you find out who is currently selling what you want to sell, and then you get an idea of where they get it from, and then you work your way backwards. Everyone needs to have some type of sourcing system, and I always say you should be unfair, because if it's fair, then everyone can get the same thing as you, and you don't want, like, if what you were selling was commonly at every single Target in America, the margin would shrink to zero, because then you also if you tell everybody that you get it at Target for 10, you're selling it for 20, they may just go to Target and get it for 10. So like this, you have to be a little bit careful on certain sources. But I will say, the more seasoned you become with reselling, the less it becomes about the items coming in. It becomes more about being selective in what comes in and really focusing down. You guys may decide to only do one of those categories if one of your plugs says, okay, we're not going to quadruple the amount of inventory if you guys are ready, then you can't do any of the other categories if that decides to be a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. So you guys have a full-time helper, I believe, a VA, and also a nanny. Do you want to share how that works?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very slow process. It wasn't something where we were like, well, we need all of this help. You know, I think a big key into how we are successfully able to do that is that we build up to it. When we get to a certain amount of profit, when we get to a certain level, then we added on somebody to help that. And that's when we got Whitney, our assistant. And then after that, I mean, Joe and I, we kind of weighed hiring somebody else or whether it would just make more sense for me to be, you know, more involved in the business. And I want to say, I don't know how much longer it took after we hired Whitney that we ended up hiring a nanny to help take care of the kids.
And we do that, like we are where we are at now because we made a big boo-boo last year. Like we hired to grow, whereas we now know, like you get as big as you can, you get so kind of overwhelmed with work that you then hire somebody, but you don't hire to grow. Whereas last year we hired more staff to grow. We had, I think, 5 full-time employees last year, and it was a debacle. It didn't go very well.
I've had my experience with that too. And so that's cool. So now you have Whitney, and she does something I think is very unique, which is she does listings from start to finish.
Yep.
Right. So that requires a little bit of experience. She must have been working for you for a while.
Yes.
Yes. She's almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in January that she's worked for.
And this is an obvious question, but did she immediately know what to do the first day?
No. No, it was kind of like we originally, like it was just a process where we hired her. I don't remember exactly what she did at first. I think she was resetting phones. You know, a lot of phones we get, they're used, so they have to be charged and reset. So she was doing that, and then she, you know, eventually that grew into her taking pictures of those. And then when we scaled last year, she was kind of like the prep. She would, you know, charge, clean, take pictures for the 2 listers that we had, the 2 full-time listers that we had. And then when that kind of, we grew too fast, didn't have enough work, we scaled back down. And I guess it was probably back in May of this year, that's when she started doing the listing and the whole process for that category.
And you guys had referred to her as your assistant, so that must be somebody you trust. She's been around for.
Aside from sourcing, I mean, she does pretty much everything for the cell phone. She runs that niche there, and we trust her with the whole, from start to finish, to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
and kind of where we're going to get set up is I kind of took a long time to get to this, but I want to run it as really separate eBay businesses. Like the digital cameras and GPS is one eBay business and one separate business. Same thing with the tablets and smartphones. It's another separate business. And then like all the liquidated goods that we do, it's a separate thing. I mean, so you can really, for us, we are starting to be able to track more accurate data as far as sell-through rates, the profitability for each categories. Because if you have everything in one store, unless you go through and track everything individually like you do, you know, very few people can tell you, well, like my sell-through rate of my store is this, but what's your sell-through rate of shoes? What's your sell-through rate of this exact type of shirts? And us setting up the business separately, it's allowing us to do that, but it's also giving us the opportunity to grow larger than what we could before by empowering, like Whitney, like when we move into a warehouse this next year, we plan on replacing what Jessica's doing with another employee. And then that will kind of like that eBay store, they will be responsible for the operation of that store. Eventually. Yeah. But that's the way that we're setting it up.
You know, I really like this because if you ask someone, what is your sell-through rate? And they say, well, it depends on blah, 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 then you really have you can't really help them. But if you just pick one category, you kind of do know. how
Yeah.
long things actually take. And that's like much easier to help somebody reach their goals if they have a specific thing. So I actually like the idea of separating it mentally into separate categories. You know, the best answer would be for you guys, cell phones are like a week or two, GPSs or whatever, and you kind of have a good idea. That's very savvy. I love it. Um, Now, this is my favorite part of you guys, which is you have a nanny who helps. And that's like, I had this email, which is obviously a little bit off-putting to some people, but it said, Chris, I want to be a part-time mom for the good parts and then a full-time entrepreneur. And obviously that's like not a good way to word it, because like, you know,
I know how they feel
she's
though.
a full-time mom, but like
Yeah.
but she's like, I want to be ambitious. Like on top of that, I don't only want to be at home. So maybe you guys can talk a little bit on that, because you're both working in the business and raising a family.
Yes. Well, it's hard. Like there's no easy way to do it. Um, but I think, there's that phrase, it takes a village. And I think that is very, very true in most cases, that having help, having people around you that are willing to step in and to work together. I have no doubt that if I asked, the nanny to come do something for me here within the business, she probably would. And I know that Whitney, the kids love her. She can go in there and I mean, we're a team. It's not, we
Wow.
all have our clear cut, like, you know, things that we do. We have
Our main area of responsibility.
right, but we can
Mm.
flow and flex between each other, and I think that makes it so much better. And as a parent, it's really nice to have trustworthy people around that can help me with my kids, because being a parent, it's a 24-hour job. It doesn't turn off when I come out here list items. Like they're still in there, and they will always need me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'd say, for parents who are wanting to do that, I'm not going to say it's mainly moms, because, culturally they take on that role because that's what
Hmm.
our culture says. But parents, they want to have both. Like you can have both, but hey, I mean, it's going to cost you some money, because you have to pay somebody. I mean, it's instead of like sending your kids to daycare, you have somebody that's going to come to your house and able to nurture and take care of your kids, help out around the house. But you have to plan for it.
This is like, so I'm going to break down the roles a little bit because this is important. You have Whitney doing 150 listings from start to finish, and then
Yeah.
Wally, your VA, and Jessica in charge of another 150 units. That's the 300 total. Now, here's the magic thing that Joe is saying, which he kind of fills in the gaps of and doing everything. And this is really interesting because if you ask a restaurant owner at a successful restaurant what they do, they wait tables, they take orders, they're answering the register, they're handling issues, they're suppliers, they're in the kitchen sometimes. Like they're everywhere because somewhere there's a fire. So
yes.
you've got to go figure it out. And that's like what a real entrepreneur would say. Cause like if unless if you decide to go the route where you hire a manager, let's say instead of Jessica helping with that, you hired a manager to oversee things. It makes the margin of the company drop to like usually under 10%. If you have a proper person running your company, they get all the money basically because they're making sure everything works. So I love that concept because filling in the gaps takes a lot of time.
It does, but it's also, I've worked in restaurants for 20 years,
Hmm.
and it's really, if you want it to be a really well-oiled machine, there are times when you are going to have to step in and do it. I mean,
Hmm.
especially like during busy shifts. I mean, you don't want if you are trying to create that environment where you are wanting to grow and you are wanting to have, you know, staff, and you want people to help you, like you don't want them to be so overwhelmed and work piled high so much all the time, because they're going to be stressed out. Like it's just not going to go well for you. But there will be also times where you could, like, if you do have a huge influx of inventory or what have you, that you can step in and there are certain aspects of their process that you can help them with to make sure that they are set up for success. And that's what I'm doing. It's like, with the cell phones and the tablets, I make sure I'm kind of processing the shipments when we get it in. I'm helping in processing those things, making sure that they're charged so that Whitney doesn't have to take the time out to do that, and then make sure items are charged. And then the same thing with like Jessica. I'm processing those shipments, I'm getting them in, I'm making sure that they are charged and ready to go, so that she's not having to change from one task to another and lose that that efficiency that we experience when you do go from one task to the other. And as long as I'm doing that, then they're able to stay focused on listing and doing those things that requires a lot more focus.
And from my standpoint, as I'm operating here as an employee, right? And Joe is my manager. I know it's a little different because he is my husband, but in general, how empowering is it that your boss or your leader is willing to go underneath you and push you up, instead of saying, hey, let me tell you how, let's fix it, let's fix your behavior, instead of saying that, just saying like, okay, let's figure out how we can do this, how can I help you? And that is an empowering thing. And so it's great for morale as well. I mean, he leads very, very well, and I think that's a key point in the success of the entire business. It's a good place to work, it's a good work environment, and I think that Joe takes that very seriously.
We had talked about in the mastermind call that there's a 20-minute penalty each time you context switch. Let's say you move from shipping to listing to online arbitrage or retail arbitrage or shopping. Each time you do that, you need to like recover and have a cup of coffee because it's so different, right?
Yeah.
So this concept means when you have staff, you want them focusing on one thing. You don't want them switching around back and forth usually. So in that case, if you're only focused on one thing, you sometimes don't recognize how it relates to the other pieces. This is why I sold the car one time to a restaurant owner that they did $40,000 a day in business. And this guy was basically the waiter.
Yeah.
Like the owner was basically the waiter. He would go in there and make sure he would talk to the customer and see what they wanted to eat. And then he would also make sure everything was working, but everyone that worked at that company only did one thing for the most part. And so that glue, it's just so important. And of course, like it would involve even like the owner or the manager doing things that quote unquote beneath them or in a lower category. But that's just how it traditionally works. Okay, so now I put you guys on the spot. We have this crew. You guys have this team. Are you guys on a schedule? How does it all flow together? You guys also homeschool. Is your day pretty disciplined? How does it work?
Well, actually, Chris, you're the one that put the pressure on our schedule, and so we've been busting it, trying to make sure that we can get something going. I mean, because honestly, it actually all started with you telling me, there's a 20-minute penalty for switching tasks. I'm like, how many times a day do I switch tasks? And I was like paying attention to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am wasting so much time. And I was like, Joe, we got to get this under control. And so, and I think the difficult thing with having a family and having a reselling business is that it's very hard to separate. Everything kind of flows together. So in order for us to have a good work environment, we have to be able to, and a good work schedule, it all flows back to, are we getting to bed on time? Are we waking up on time? Are we preparing to get to work, at a reasonable hour? And are we like super stressed out when we get to work because the morning was so hectic, or not? Like, are our kids getting the attention that they need? So it's like, it's a lot. So, we ended up reverse engineering our day. So we started from what time do we want to wake up in the morning? And, we want to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning. So what time do we need to go to bed? And then we reverse engineered our day from there. And that included like the nitty gritty details of what we're going to be doing, at what times of day for reselling. And so we're actually in the process now of really making sure that we are disciplined. I think reselling is great because it gives you a lot of freedom, but also gives you a lot of freedom to not get a lot done if you're not disciplined. I think there needs to be a level of discipline when working.
Yeah. I think that's really, you know, with this goal that we have in mind of 300 items per week, it can really only happen because we are stepping into a more structured schedule. It's like, you know, we want to wake up at 5, then kind of for me, it's like I want to have that time in the morning from 5 to 7 that I can get my coffee, I can read, I can journal, I can do all those things. If I get done early, then I can start my work day early. But like my goal now is to be like 7 to 12 working on our eBay business, and then taking like an hour lunch, you know, veg out on, you know, ESPN or YouTube for like an hour. And then from like 1 to 4, that's when, you know, the time that I'm going to be dedicating to YouTube content creation, working on our website, those types of things. You know, certain days of the week, you know, Jessica's in a homeschool co-op right now on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So like on those days, I help get the kids ready for school. So I won't be getting to work until 8 that day. But it's still that first 5 hours of my day where I'm the most focused, being dedicated to reselling. And then the next 3 hours, take a break. So we're kind of segmenting the day into 2 different work days where we have the eBay reselling business and then also our YouTube that we are also treating as a business.
Very cool. Yeah, no, structuring out your day like that is very intense. And I wrote down something, which is it's actually easier when the goal is hard. You mentioned that if it's easy to do, it's easy not to do. Like as an example, I'm trying to list 40 items by myself in 4 hours right now. And it's not easy. It's hard. I've got to be really focused. But if I wanted to say, oh, I'll just list 5 items in 4 hours, that's really easy. And also very easy to just be like, whatever, I'll just do 10 tomorrow if it's that easy. So the harder the goal, the better. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying kids would be a really good motivator for me. Like if I had kids one day, I'm probably going to want to hang out with them. And if you don't get your stuff done earlier, you can't. Or if you are with them, you're distracted. And I see that, especially being in the Bay Area, there are so few kids. The ones you do see are usually being ignored by their parents.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it is very, very challenging to do both.
Yeah. And that's really, you know, big reason, like on Friday afternoons, we take off at noon. We only work until noon on Fridays, except for today because we actually took off yesterday afternoon early. But normally Fridays we take off early to spend time with the kids, go to the zoo, go to the museum, but just hang out with them and be present, because usually on the weekends, you know, we have church and stuff that we go to on Sundays, and then Saturdays we're going to see family and stuff. But it's different because when we go see family, it's like they're playing with their cousins or playing with their grandparents, and it's not time spent with Jessica and I. And then when they don't get the time with us come Monday, they're feeling disconnected, and they you know, they just don't respond. Kids don't respond well when they're feeling disconnected from their parents. And that's a lot of times where, you know, kids will start throwing fits and they'll scream, they'll do all kinds of stuff. And we just think they're being a bad kid. And like, you know, you need to stop that, you know, spanking, people do that, you know, all that kind of stuff. But really, in fact, they're just feeling disconnected from their parents, and they're acting out because they're not getting attention. So for us, we have to make a really concentrated effort at night times and on Fridays to be present with them so they're not fighting for our attention. You know, putting our phones away and focusing on them and doing activities with them.
Once in a while, you'll meet a kid that has had enough attention, and it's so different. They're just at peace. They don't need to do anything. They don't need to act crazy because they're good. So
Yeah,
they're full. They're full.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you confuse like bad behavior, and if you in your head saying, you know, this child is behaving badly, replace that thought with this child is in desperate need of connection. It changes your entire way of how you respond to that child. And then makes
Absolutely.
you a better parent in general. And so that's a big part of why, I mean, and you know, it's nice to be able to schedule that time, that non-negotiable time with your kids, that is required. We need to be able to do that. So having a good discipline schedule is important for that as well. It's not just important for the business, it's important for the family as a whole.
I like that saying. The non-negotiable kid time has been a recurring theme for successful parents. Like, that's really amazing. There's also, I forgot what book this is from, but there are these two parents in public, or I'm sorry, there's a father in public, and he has two kids, and they're screaming and yelling and causing this big fuss, and a couple walks by and they're like, "Oh, you guys should need to control your children," or something. And then the dad says, "Well, their mom just passed, and I don't know how to I don't know how to deal with I don't know how to deal with it, and they don't know how to deal with it either."
Yeah.
And so that makes sense. Like, when you see people acting crazy, usually it's from something. So that absolutely drives it home. Cool. So, is there anything that you guys feel is your biggest obstacle? What's the challenge right now? Because it seems pretty clean the way you guys have it set up.
At the same time, I think really time management and scheduling is probably still the most difficult thing, because we do have so much going on, that there's a lot that we have going on behind the scenes and stuff with different things that we're working on, different projects, that still it gets very difficult to execute that plan. And that's where, like, we've been derailed in the past, but now, like, we've realized our shortcomings of, like, it's just really about planning. Like, sometimes we just don't execute the plan. You don't follow the plan, and then it's like Wednesday and nothing has gone well the whole week. So it's really just about that weekend setting yourself up for success and going into the week cleanly. That's really probably when we struggle. That's kind of Mondays. Usually, if Mondays don't go well, we don't execute Monday. We have a difficult time with the week and getting back on track.
Yeah, I think a big thing for us that, it seems like something like, oh, well, they're saying it should be easy for them to do, but it's not. It becomes almost like an emotional situation where you have to kind of be in control of it. But when something doesn't go as planned, and, there comes a point in that derailment of the plan that you come up with a new plan. Stop trying to force, a week's worth of plans in, 3 days, because the first 2 days didn't go as well. And so, we're trying to play catch up, when really we're never going to catch up. We need to come up with another plan. We need to make the most out of the time that we do have. How can we make that the most productive and efficient time that we have?
Yeah.
And, I know it seems simple, but it's not. And I think that's a big key learning point for us.
Yeah. And with that, I think also, big areas is having, in the past, we haven't really had like a set goal. It's like, let's just get as much listed as we can.
Sorry, go ahead.
All these other projects that we want to do, but we don't, because we're just like, let's list. But then, like, things aren't getting done. We're getting frustrated because there's other things that we want to do in life that aren't getting done, that are important to us. But, when you get that list, it's just without a goal. Like, if you, once you hit that goal, like, that's not like, don't really focus on moving past that. Like, that's your goal. Like, we reverse engineered it. Like, these are our goals. Once we've hit those goals, then let's move on to those secondary things that are important to us that we didn't make time to before, because we're trying to do as much as we can. And that just created lots of issues. So those are all, like, down things that we've worked through. There's probably way more, that we could talk about, but that's like another 20 videos of, shortcomings and things that we've learned and stumbled through,
Yeah, well, I'm going to tie it all back together. So now our North Star, the GPS location, is 300 items a week at, minimum. Once that gets done, then you do the rest of the stuff. You don't let the whirlwind prevent you from getting that basic goal and then the rest of it. So today I actually tried listing 2 items that suck for me, which is a pair of sunglasses and a pair of prescription glasses. And I'm like, I'm just going to do them first. And I think that I should not have done that because it kind of messed me up. Trying to do that and then list the shoes, well, it took me 20 minutes to readjust to it. So next time I'm going to do my 40 shoes first, then do the glasses after. And it's okay if the 2 pairs of glasses don't get done, that's fine because it's not part of your original goal anyway. It's extra. So it's important to do. It's sometimes tempting to do the easiest thing first, but it's going to throw your game off for the rest of the day. So let people know, where's the best way to find you guys online.
This way. I mean, we have a website, thefamilyflips.com.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you go there, that we've got our Instagram link there, our Facebook page. We've got our YouTube link there. I mean, that would probably be the easiest. Would be just go to thefamilyflips.com. But we're on all the social media places. We got a blog that we do on there. We've got bigger plans for it in the future that we're working on. Now that we have goals in mind, listing goals, and that we're working with that.
Sweet. All right, guys, everybody check out their channel. All the links will be below, and I'll see you guys next time.